Good morning. Welcome to Sunday Reflections. I've hoped that you all have had a chance to figure out what you did over this last weekend. I know it rained pretty hard all over the place, and sometimes there was thunder and lightning and all things that happening. So we're here today to be with you, and we're grateful that you're watching or listening or whatever you're doing. But we've got someone with us today that I think you'll find very interesting. And not only interesting, but someone that has the opportunity to be working on the entire national side because the U.S. Senate's going to be voting for him in September. So,
Yeah.
Derek Bars, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Rick.
Good.
So good to be here with you.
Well, it's my pleasure because when I first met you, it was at a different time when you were wearing the sheriff's type stuff of the state of Florida.
Yeah, I was. That's
That's
been
it.
such a long time ago. I remember that vividly. We were having lunch together, and I was with the Highway Patrol at the time.
That's right.
And we were having lunch, and it's been just a great relationship that we've had since that day one.
All right. Well, today I want to let us know here because we've got a lot of these sponsors, and
Yes.
I want to make sure that you all know how important they are to us and to you. First of all, they're going to be a good deal for you on everything they do. Like the DJ's Clam Shack, they have been so very helpful. They're all through the state of Florida. They're outside in New England as well. And it's craving fresh, flavorful seafood in the heart of historic St. Augustine. And if you come to DJ's Clam Shack at Hippolyta, it's 21 Hippolyta Street, where Northeast meets Key West. Oh, man, it's so good. Born in the Florida Keys and rooted in New England tradition. DJ serves up lobster rolls, fried clams, conch fritters, and more. Made fresh from the highest quality. Through Sunday from 11 to 9, from opens Tuesday through Sunday from 11 to 9. It's the perfect place to grab a stroll down the old streets of St. Augustine and taste one of the best seafood experiences in the country. So you have that opportunity. So the other person that's helping us, and the one is someone who cares about this community. It's the Shee family, and we'd like to extend our heartfelt thanks to them, the Shee family, because they are most generous and they are community focused, and they are families in St. Johns County where they even have work with the Tringali Barn, a premier event and wedding venue. And the leadership, of course, is Chris Shee. The family continues to support and uplift countless local causes. And that's the truth. And I've been to several of those, and he's just helped so many people. Their commitment to giving back makes a lasting impact, and we are truly grateful for all they do for this community. So thank you, the Shee family. We really appreciate that, and you make St. Johns County stronger.
Amen.
So that's our sponsors today, and we'll be talking about it. But Derek, when I first started to find out where you were and how you were, I mean, we would do other things. I'd send you poems and stuff
Yes.
too, and we even had chances to be together and with others and stuff. So, but what I didn't really know as much about until I was trying to think, well, I knew he came somewhere in Florida and he was born in that place. And since I was in Mango, I thought, well, he can't have something that far away.
Yeah.
And I said, Madison County?
Yes.
Wow. And you grew up there.
I did. It's a wonderful place. I am so proud of the rich family heritage that I have, and to be from that place, it's wonderful. My father is still there, and as a matter of fact, I talked to him on my way up here. We were FaceTiming coming up here, and both he and my mother are both from Madison County, and it was a great place to grow up, and I'm so proud to be from there. And one of the things my dad, talking about my reflections, my dad always says, never forget where you come from, son. No matter where you go in life, whether you go to St. Augustine when we came here 22 plus years ago, I've moved to Flagler County, or now potentially moving to Washington, D.C. Just never forget where you come from and never forget your raising is what my dad would always tell me and continues to tell me today.
Yeah, well, that's all good. And, for you right now, we find this going on that's so important. for this community and for really the entire all of the United States. And we'll get into some details of that. But I know some other things about you.
Oh boy.
That yeah, well, that's what happens when
you start doing your research.
That's it. That's right. You got to be a researcher.
That's
here.
right.
That's right. So what we've got also is that you actually went to the same college and graduated from where my son had gone.
Yes, we did.
And what country was that in?
Well, I think it was here.
In St. Augustine.
It was. It kind of the reflections behind us here kind of give that away. But we both went to Flagler College for sure, different times, but we both went through the program together. I know it at Flagler College, and I will reflect back again and say that was one of the most important times of my life, of saying I went back to college at a later time in my life, and being able to have that experience. I was working, had a full-time job, had a family, trying to raise a family, and still going through college at the age of 40 was probably one of the best experiences I have. And some of the relationships that I built during that particular time have lasted, and will last for such a long period of time, for a lifetime. I know it will be. I'm so thankful for that, that God was able to really open my heart to say, it's time for you to do this. Yeah. And having no understanding, if you will, at that particular time, that what it would mean to me and what it would, the doors that potentially would open by finishing college at that particular time in my life.
Yeah.
It was, I had no idea what the opportunities would come my way with that.
Well, tell me too a little bit more, because I think that they need to know a little bit more before we get into some discussions regarding where you're going next.
Okay.
And so tell them a little bit about your time being in the not the military, but all of the helping people through your work for police and sheriffs and all of the things you've done there, and how you come into that.
So we'll kind of revert back talking about me being in Madison, where I grew up. The sheriff at the time was Sheriff Joe Peavy. He was a longtime country sheriff. He'd worked for the Highway Patrol for about 15 years prior to being elected sheriff, and he was there for 28 years. But he took me under his wing, and there was a family connection that was there locally. He and my grandfather, they had the same birthday.
Oh, wow.
So we did a lot of family events, and there was just so many great times, fish fries, all that good stuff. But he knew that I was interested in law enforcement and serving, and I saw something in him at that particular time and not realizing it till later. But he was an individual who really took care of people. It was more than just being sheriff. It was more than just sheriffing, is what I call it. It was really serving your community. If someone passed away in that community, you can bet we, as members of the sheriff's office, we would be there. We would be any way that we could help take care of that family. He always, you always waved to everybody, and you took care of everyone, in times of good times and bad times. So it started there. I spent 10 years working with the sheriff's office in many different roles, and working in the school as a school resource officer. And that was probably, again, that was a service role that I had no idea that would play into what I do now and what I've done throughout my career, how important that would be.
Sure.
So then in 2001, I left the sheriff's office and went to work with the state and got into commercial vehicle enforcement, which was a totally different realm of law enforcement that I had no concept that it would lead me to the path that I am today. And so I ended up retiring from the state and from the Highway Patrol in 2020 as the chief of commercial vehicle enforcement in that bureau, of leading a great set of men and women across the state, from Pensacola all the way to the Keys, one of your favorite places, I know.
Yeah.
And was able to lead those and make strides of improving highway safety with our team working together. So anyways, it started back such a long time ago. When I was just a teenager, the sheriff allowed me to ride with deputies well before we had an Explorer program. There was no such thing at that particular time. And so, there's a story that probably won't get into today, but when I was 16 years old, he said, "I need you to go to Miami and pick up a prisoner for me." I'm like, I know you can't do that today, and I'm not sure how we did that then. But
Yeah.
anyways, we got into a patrol car, and off I went to Miami and picked up a prisoner and brought that prisoner back. And I thought my mama was going to have a fit. But anyways, it was the point of service and serving my community, and something I've been so proud to do, and have been given some great opportunities. And it started there, but it also started with my family.
Yeah.
And I reflect back, and I told you this morning, I opened up this book that I have of, a father's legacy of being able to try to, give something and pass down at some point to my own children, to say, this was your grandparents, this was your dad, and what he did and what your grandparents did. And I opened up the book, and I always had it in the back normally, but I opened up the reflection, and I have a picture of my mother here.
Yeah. Hold it still for a minute,
And
just so they can see it. Yeah, let them see it. Let them
but
see it.
my mother here, and it just reflected on me of how important that my mother has been or was in my life, and the support that she gave me. Now, she could be rough, don't get me wrong. She was your mother, and she did what she was supposed to do, for sure. But I look back on this, and I opened up this book this morning for some other reasons, just to reflect.
Sure.
And there she was.
Yeah, well, that's all great. And I know this too, that since all those times after you retired,
Yep.
you decided to go into government and do something else and be in a place to do stuff that you're in now. Haven't resigned yet.
No.
So where are you now?
So I actually, when I retired from the Highway Patrol, I went to work with this engineering and consultant firm called H&TB. H&TB is a transportation infrastructure solution firm, and they've been around for 115 years. Long tradition of working with helping State Department of Transportation solve so many different complex problems. My mentor at H&TB, Craig Toth, someone who I have much respect for, came to me as I was retiring from the patrol and said, "We would like for you to come to work with us, and we'd like for you to work on some commercial vehicle operations stuff, traffic incident management, and how you can help us advance the practice that we have related around safety in commercial vehicles." I'd never worked in the private sector before, Rick, but it's been one of the most another rewarding time of my life.
Yeah.
Being able to work with this firm who has been so supportive to me, being able to help solve complex problems, helping them work closely with our clients. So I've really had such a great time working with them. And then just a few beginning part of the year. I don't know if you want to go into that now, but just that has led into being asked by the president.
Yeah, well, before you go there, you still are a person sitting on some board.
Oh, I am.
Well, tell us about that before you get to the last one.
Okay,
There you go.
so I am. So I've sit on the Flagler County School Board, and I have for the past year. And
didn't the governor appoint you?
The governor appointed me October 30th of last year to serve. There was an open seat that came up, and of being able to serve in that particular capacity on the school board. And I kind of mentioned that earlier about being a school resource officer, not knowing that, 30 years ago, if you will, that some of those things would come back and be such a great, it would be a help for me to be able to serve on the school board.
Yeah.
And I've been serving for the last year, and such. Flagler County has a lot of history, as you well know, and the school district there is making some great strides. And, we talk about all the time of being able to be the best. How do we become the best choice for our students? How do we make changes? How do we work together with our community to be able to be that best choice? We want to give parents the opportunities to do the things that they want to do and what they think is best for their child, but also from a public education standpoint, what do we do to need to be the best for the best choice for that parent?
Yeah, I think that turns out to be something very important for all of us
Yes.
here in St. Johns County. And if you're from other counties, it's also very important because, as you just heard, you can hear things all the way through from when you start off to where you are now.
Mhm.
And so we find that that's very important to you, but it's also important to God because he can lead you on that path.
Yes, gosh, no kidding. You have no idea where God's going to lead you.
That's right.
And where certain turn of events that you say, like, how did we even get here?
Right. And where are we in relationship to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me where you are.
Yeah. And how do you stay in that lane of where God wants you to be?
Well, he closes the door sometimes.
Well, he has closed some doors. There's no doubt about it. I mean, talking about being on the school board, I was appointed to the school board, but I went through a loss as well.
Yeah.
I ran for school board in Flagler and lost by 288 votes. And then a month later, I had the opportunity, and the governor appointed me to fill an open seat that came up.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, how did that even happen?
That's right. That's right. How can you? How can you know that? And now let's tell you where you're going now, and then we'll talk a little bit about those basic things that fall into the reflections that we both are talking about.
So the reflection with that, I'm going to be. I've been nominated back in March of this year by the president to be the next administrator for Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and that's a mode of transportation within the U.S. Department of Transportation, and it is a presidential appointment and Senate confirmation position. Back in July, I went through the confirmation hearing after long periods of preparation, and so I sat in front of the Transportation, Commerce, and Science Committee, Transportation Committee, under the chairman was Ted Cruz, and ranking member Cantwell from Washington, and members of that committee to ask questions about me and where I stand on certain issues. That was an experience.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That was an experience that had no idea that maybe over the last 20 plus years, not knowing that I was going to leave the sheriff's office in 2001.
Right.
And go into commercial vehicle enforcement work in the law enforcement division of the state that would then lead me to this federal position. Had no idea that would even happen. So, God is working in our lives. And he's working when we don't know that he's working in the background. I think sometimes we think that we're ultimately in control. In reality, we're really not.
Yeah, that's what it's very interesting, as you just said, because as we sit here today, we don't know where we're going to be next tomorrow. No. And I didn't intend to have this poem today, but it's going to happen at the end or somewhere along the way. But it does talk about tomorrows. And so I feel very much, as you're listening today, you're about to hear how this makes it so much different for people who are in the driving and doing the work that they have to do as truckers, and how that makes them go in. And you'll see so many of them. You've seen them on the highway. You've seen them backing up. You've seen all this. You've even seen one that killed 3 people just recently. And so we know that this is something that has to be done to protect them, to give them opportunities, to give them the way to bring food and everything else to us. We have to have all of that. And so let's talk a little bit about that before we go into the rest of the story.
Sure.
But when you did some of these things, you knew some of these truckers. You later became involved with some trucking companies and national ones that you did. How did that happen?
Well, it's kind of like anything else that we do. You have to build relationships, and building relationships and knowing who your stakeholders are, who your partners are going to be. And if you're enforcing truck regulations, your partners are the trucking community. And the American Trucking Association is one that I've worked with over the years, and we've worked on a law enforcement advisory board recently, trying to tackle different issues from truck parking to human trafficking, and also cargo theft being one of those issues, and then distracted driving. But really, the Florida Trucking Association, right now the president is Alex Miller. She has done a fantastic job of working closely with law enforcement, state entities, with with our legislature to really, promote trucking. But trucking is so essential. I think we forget about, when we go to the store, when we buy this shirt or we buy food in the grocery stores, of how important. It didn't just show up there by accident. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that happen and occur to be able to get our goods that we take for granted a lot of times show up on the shelves for us to purchase.
Well, I can share that with you. I worked for Publix while I was going to school.
Yeah.
And not only did I have this opportunity, but I had to unload the trucks.
Wow.
And so when you have to unload the trucks, and then you find, man, all I have now are these daggum large things that you use to wipe things off. And I thought, that's all that's left. That's great.
Yeah.
It turns out that's halfway,
That's
because
halfway
there's
point.
that's halfway. And
That's
so now
right.
you
That's
do
right.
it all the way. So yeah, so I know that, and now I shared with you that I have one of my wife's late wife's brothers, who was adopted by her parents, that is a trucker.
Yes.
And so I've seen that process too, and he does it all over, and it's amazing what he can do. And he goes through all these terrible things. He goes through rain, snow, ice, wrecks that other people, he has to wait, and he still has to get there to bring that food in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and with we have so many rules and regulations, do not get me wrong, but the regulations are there, and I've talked about this. If you can go back and you can Google my confirmation hearing, but I stick on the message of safety, and that's what we have to be focused on is the safety aspect. And what we're doing, it has to be where we're going to save lives. And if there's gaps in here that we need to be looking at for the future, well, let's look at those gaps, and so we can make sure that our roadways are safe, period. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want safe roads. We want the drivers in passenger cars, commercial vehicles. It doesn't matter. We want them to be safe on our roadway. I worked for a captain one time. He said, we just got too many cars and not enough roads sometimes. But with that being said, we have to be mindful of each other on the roadway.
Yeah.
And I talk about the American truck driver and how essential that American truck driver is to our economy, they're just great people who are really trying to do the great things. And I talk about my good friend, Jimmy Davis, who owns Davis Trucking over in Stark. And they've closed their doors down. They've been in business for a long period of time, but doing the right thing, carrying on a family legacy. And you can, their company is just one of many of the companies that are out there that are just trying to do the right things for the right reasons. Yeah. So being able to potentially lead, if I can get confirmed, and I feel confident that I will get confirmed in September when Congress goes back into session, that we'll be able to get to work and start looking at these gaps and where they are and working with our stakeholders. And kind of going back to your original question, how did this happen? But it's really about making those relationships and working together for that common good of how do we work together and not against one another. If we believe for 1 minute that we're not going to disagree on topics, we're sadly mistaken.
Yeah.
Because, we're going to disagree on topics. But we got to try to find some common ground to work together on and try to make those things better. There's a gentleman that I've worked with over the years who lives in Missouri. We don't always see eye to eye with each other, but we respect one another. I may not agree with some of the ideas that he may have come up with over the years, and he may not agree with some of the ideas that I've come up with to resolve an issue. But I believe, knowing him and him knowing me, that we are really, truly trying to do what we feel like is best to be able to save lives. And I think that's important. We have to respect that from one another. Yeah. And being able to find that ground. And I want to kind of shift back again, if I can, is that no matter if you disagree, you got to have the partnerships. You got to work together. And I think sometimes we miss that. We miss that mark.
Yeah, it's a real difficult time, and we know this in our whole life, that we have those discussions and we also have those disagreements.
We do.
And until we can get to the end, where you then have it. It's almost like a mediator.
Mm-hmm.
And if I start talking about mediator, I'm going to talk about God.
Yes.
And he is our mediator because he sent his son to be able to do that. And so what we end up finding is that through the life that we live, that there is also a need for that. One of the shows that I had already was about Solomon and how he had to make a decision of which woman really owned the baby, whether they both said that they were my baby.
Right.
And so the only way he could make that happen was say, well, then he'll cut them in half.
Oh.
And so the real lady who did it said, I'll give it to her. That's the mediator, because he then knew who was the right woman.
Right.
And so that's where we are with each other. Yeah. We can do whatever we want to do, but if we do it badly, I mean, I've gone through some texting recently that I don't like the text. I don't like it because there's no way to have this conversation that we're having today because you can't put it all in. And so therefore some of the text that you write doesn't go anywhere. It just gets people there because they look at something different than you do. Yes. And you can't make that happen because these are words, and however you decide the words are going, you may find that it affected you more than it affected them. And then you're saying, well, why am I doing these texting? Yeah. Why can't I just pick up the phone? Well, we don't have time anymore. We don't have time. So we have to do these texting. We don't have phones anymore. We have texting and emails.
That's right.
And social media. Those are our answers to every answer we've got.
I know one of the things I used to say in my job when I was the chief with the Highway Patrol, I feel like I was an email monger.
Right.
You know, that's the day is just filled up with responding to emails back and forth with each other. And you're right, the tone, I think kind of what you're talking about is, what is that tone? What is that like when I'm sending that text back and forth? When we can pick up the phone and say, this is what I really meant.
Right.
And sometimes we get lost in the text. Yeah. Instead of what's in the heart.
That's right. And that's the reflection that you get on all of these things. This is when you do something and it hurts somebody else, you've made a bad mistake.
Yes.
And that's true, because if they take it differently than you do, you've still hurt them. And you don't want to hurt them. That's not your plan. Your plan was to just be straightforward and get it done as quick so they didn't have to spend more time on it.
Right.
And then if you did one after another, now all of a sudden you're in a fight. And you didn't mean to be in a fight. You didn't want to be in a fight. You only wanted to do the thing that they wanted us to do.
You're fighting yourself out of the fight.
Yeah, everybody is. Yeah, it is. It
That's
is.
right.
It is. Yeah. So
absolutely.
So I understand that, and I don't like the texting, and I'm probably going to back off of it even more than I do now.
Well, before you do that, so I don't want to interrupt you, but you talked about poems earlier when you're in your opening piece, but you send so many poems, and I reflect back on so many of these different poems that you send to me, of how, I think sometimes you may not realize how important that is to your readers, of how that may get you through a day of difficulty that you may have, because it may be the right words at the right time, and you may not realize that. So I will say that, reflecting back on the many that I have received from you, that I appreciate them very much, and they mean so much to me. I'll send you a heart. I may not always necessarily respond back to you, but let you know, man, that one right there was what I needed today. And that's what those mean whenever I send that little response back to you. So I want to reflect back on that with you to let you know how much I appreciate that.
Well, again, I always thought, and I still do, that it's not coming from me, but from God. And so I'm grateful that that's the case, but I'm not trying to do that for me. It's not about me, it's about God. And I care about that. That's why I'm here on Reflections. Yeah. I didn't come here just to be on this show. I didn't come in here to do it. I'm not talking about what positions I have or what I do for a living and all that. I don't do that. I'm just plain Rick. Right. And I'm here to be the one to let you make that decision. I don't want to be that decision maker. I'm here to help you find out if you can find that path that only God can lead you to. And I know that when that happens,
Mm.
you're in the place where you don't have any worries. You get rid of the fear. You get rid of everything that's there. You no longer have to be concerned with, well, am I going to lose my job today? Am I going to do anything else? Is it going to take away my family? Am I going to get a divorce? Am I going to get one of my family members dying? Am I going to see all that? The answer is God will take care of those things. That's why he died for us, to be able to take them off our shoulders. So anyway,
Well, that goes back a little bit to a quick reflection that we had, right? When we talked about this morning that we said that God is, he is, I am.
that's right. Yeah, you can kind of read that one from right that was done in Exodus.
Yes.
If you've got it friendly there.
I do. It says, God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you.
Yeah.
In Exodus 3:14.
Well, and I shared with you that was really the same thing that I read today, but it came from a different place. It didn't come from, it was a biblical piece inside the things that I do every morning
Right.
when I do my thinking and prayers. And it happened to be there too. So, and again, when you have that connection, now what is your reflection on that? Well, my reflection when we talked about it this morning is that I now understand that when we're talking about something, it was one of those things where God wanted us to use those words, because that is who he is. He is the great I am. And there is no question that that is true, regardless of what religion you're in. It doesn't matter. In that religion, whether you be Muslim, whether you be Jewish, whether you be Christian, and not if you're atheist, but if you do those three areas, it's the same God I am. There is no other one. And that's why those three are together. They don't agree with each other, and they don't understand that there's also the Son that we believe as a Christian. Yeah. But that's their issue of when it's going to happen and how it's going to be. But I can tell you this. I know every day in my life, every day, that if I don't be speaking with God or listening to him, even to the deepest sound that you could ever hear, that I want to be in his presence, because I know he will lead me on the path of righteousness for his name's sake. And that's under the Psalm 23.
And that's one of the pieces of reflecting back is, once I am confirmed again, is being able to make sure that I am where God wants me to be. That's right. What is that? Sometimes you ask that question, well, what does that look like? Where, a lot of doors open that you think, how in the world did those doors even open? How did we get here? We said that a few minutes ago. How did we even get to the point of being able to be here? So where is God leading me, just like where has he led you, to be able to lead others and be able to do his work? And then we talked about the safety aspect of that, but can we do these things working together with the center focal point of where I was raised in Christianity? Sure. and being a Christian? And then that goes back to another thing we haven't even talked about, of how that even happened, of growing up in a Christian home, Christian examples in my life, and all the way back. My grandmother is one. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But when you get there, and I'll tell you a story of a gentleman who is actually here locally, who is working in D.C. now, and working on some transportation issues, and he lives up in Nassau County.
Right.
And we met one day, and we were praying together. We want to be, I believe in prayer, and how can we utilize what opportunities that we have been able that we've been given to be able to do good. Yeah. And how can we do that together? And that's going to be through prayer and by seeking what God wants us to do, and really trying to find that and go into that kind of silence and listening, and kind of, taking away the noise that's out there, because there is so much noise in our lives, to where, can I really listen, being quiet. Yeah. We run so much sometimes that I feel like we're running and we need to be still.
Yeah. There's a place up in Conyers, Georgia,
Mm.
that is the Monastery of the Holy Spirit, and I would go up there quite regularly. Um, I had my brother who was a first responder.
Mm.
He was a captain of a fire station, and he would always go in first before anybody else because he was not gonna if it's not safe for him, he says it's not
That's
safe
safe.
for them.
Oh, wow.
And so he would do that. He even taught at the Ocala uh,
Oh, Fire College?
Fire College. He
Wow.
taught there, and he knew so much, and he did it. But he ended up at age 34 of being in a very bad chemical fire, and he ended up getting cancer that was the fastest they'd ever seen. And so he passed away in 34. And so, but I understand that, and I understand that as you look back and you reflect on all the different people that have died in your family, and you say, just as you did today when you did the legacy, you saw something that reminded you of what piece you are in your own life. In other words, that they carry that through through 5 generations. That's what the Bible says. There are 5 generations that you do. So whatever you do is going to be for the next 5 generations.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so when we have those 5 generations, you're carrying all of this because you're carrying some of the same. And that's the same thing. If we look out in the birds and the bees, they do the same thing. They have the oxygen that we come to. We're breathing oxygen from other people. We're going through all of this. We are not by ourselves. We are together with each other. And if we keep on fighting with each other and trying to kill each other and blow things up in a way that doesn't help anybody,
Right.
then how are we helping anything?
And it's when we all have gone through times in our lives where you needed to have someone, to help you get up, and being able to, if you're down, if you're sick, you talk about having cancer. I was diagnosed with leukemia several years ago and had no idea. I mean, where did that even come from? I go and I have a physical, and my doctor says, "Well, I see something, a little abnormalities here. I want to send you off for some additional blood work." And I'm thinking, okay, he didn't really tell me that it may be it may be cancer. So he sends me off, and I go to a doctor, and of course have some blood drawn, and they come out and they said, well, first of all, I call and it says cancer center such and such, and I'm like, why am I calling the cancer center? I'm not real sure that I should be doing that. But anyway, so I called the cancer center. I had my blood work done, and sure enough, I ended up having what they call hairy cell leukemia. And man, what a shock.
Yeah.
And not knowing what that even meant at the time, that you've got leukemia. What does that mean? Is this a short time? Is this a long time? Is this something that's treatable? Is it not treatable? All these different things start running through your mind about what's next in life. And I think I'm too young. I said I'm too young for this, But God can use so many different things. He can bring people together during sickness, also in health, but He can also bring things together during that time. And I look back and say, maybe it was what I needed.
Yeah.
I drink a whole lot more water now than I ever did. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But I come back, and one of the things afterwards, having my family there with me and friends there with me as I went through, I had to have a round of chemo. It could have been worse. I could have had multiple rounds of chemo. But that particular round of chemo did the trick. It did what it was supposed to do. And my doctor says, you'll probably die of something else, Derek, other than this. She says, but if it comes back, she says, we'll do another round and we'll put it back dormant again, like it's supposed to. You're never going to lose it. It's never going to go away. It's always going to be in your body.
Yeah.
But we can treat it.
Well, I'm going to share something with you and with you all out here too, and it's something that that falls into the same category. In just a minute, you'll hear that. And so, what happened when I helped bring Mayo Clinic here for the Davis family. I was my partner was George Smathers, who was a former U.S. Senator here, and he was on the board of Winn-Dixie. And the Davis family wanted to bring in Mayo Clinic here to our community, and that's where it is now. And he donated all the land. And but the Mayo wasn't sure they wanted to do it because they were already in Minnesota. And they didn't need to try to figure out what they were doing. But I had a chance to meet with the chairman and over phones. I didn't ever met him in person. But then later they did it. They agreed with it. They then opened one in Phoenix as well. But what happened was that I would go to them all the time. That I had access to them. I was able to go, and even as they didn't have a hospital at the time. But then when I had a part of the things that they were checking me on a regular basis, and nothing seemed to be bad until one day that they found that I had cancer in my prostate. And so now I have to figure out where I'm going. So I talked to the people of the that are there that do all the other parts of it, and they say, well, there's a new place starting that was called the Proton Center but at that time by the university, but as the University of Florida put that together. So I was in that first class, but here's how I got there. I picked up the phone because they told me to call and speak with Dr. Mendenhall. And there's two Dr. Mendenhalls, husband and wife, that have been there now they've been handling all of that. And they said, I called the number and I said, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to do. Am I going to go to Mayo? Am I going to do something? This is new, brand new. There's only one other one in the whole country at the time in California. So what do you do? I mean, so I said, well, let me at least talk to her. And I call in and I said, yes, I was told to call Dr. Mendenhall. My name is Rick Rumrell. And the lady on the other end said, what school did you go to? I thought, they're going to require that to me to go there? That's going to be crazy. I said, so I told her what college I went to. I told her what law school I went to. She said, no, what high school did you go to? Now I'm really concerned. Yeah, I mean, if they want me to go all the way down, all the way through all my education, I thought, wow.
You're going to go back to high school.
Yeah, and then I told her where I was at. And she said, well, I was a classmate of yours.
Oh, my gosh.
And I knew then that that's where God wanted me
That's where he wanted you to be.
That was it. That's the reflection that you get. And, that was back in 2006.
Wow.
So I'm still here kicking and between the ditches. And God has led me all the way through to do even this today. And there are so many things like that I've done, that I've gone through, just like what you just described.
Yes.
And we have to deal with this in ways that we always have to wait for what God is going to share with us.
And not knowing what that's going to be.
But not knowing.
And not knowing. And, when I moved here, when I moved to St. Augustine, and I moved here in 2003. I reflect back now thinking, what in the world? Back 22 plus years ago when we moved here, the population probably was about the size of probably Flagler County. I think it was maybe 150, 140,000 people lived here. Now we're pushing 400,000, or St. John's pushing almost 400,000. But when I moved here, it was a big place compared to Madison.
Sure.
I mean, Madison has a couple of red lights, and there's no traffic or anything like that. And maybe 18,000 people live in the entire county. So when I moved here, it was a huge shock for me.
Right.
Not knowing anyone, but leaving places where you knew everyone.
Yeah.
And I look back and now thinking, man, God was leading me, but it was so clear then at that particular time that it was the right move. Everything, and I say everything, I hate to use that word but it felt like that everything fell into place. Jobs fell into place, homes fell into place, selling of homes fell into place. The ease of that piece fell into place like, wow, this only can be from God. And I had that same feeling. I've had it multiple times, but I'll kind of go back to the when I sat in front of the Senate recently, and um, I never felt that I was nervous. Do not get me wrong. I mean, but I will say that I had such a peace about it,
Yeah.
and it was, and I had a peace about moving here in 2003, similar to like I had the peace of sitting there in front of the Senate. I was nervous about what that's going to look like, but I knew that God was in the middle of all of that, and it's all going to work itself out. And the people that I've met in this community, the community that I'm from, community that I live in now, and then where I'm going in the future, of being able to build those blocks, if you will, as an analogy, of being able to make you better, and where you can help others the way you've been helped.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
reflect back on that now. I mean, I really hadn't thought about it too much, but I sit here and think about how, again, because I want to say this, because it's just like, you know, God was in the middle of that. And and it's refreshing. I'm sitting here having this moment, if you will, of looking back of how hard it was, but how good it was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very interesting part of our community and also of our
Mm.
government.
Yes.
Our government has mostly the people that give all the questions were their staff, and they have them already written down. They already have it so
Yes.
they can do it
Yeah.
because they're so busy themselves. They have a hard time to stay on top of everything that comes in front of them.
Right.
And so they have to have people that have done all the research, have done these stuff, kind of like what I did with you today of just talking about
You were
your.
stalking me down right now.
No, we're all right. We're all right. So we end up doing the same thing where you
Right.
have to be able to do it. And so that's why they do it. And remember, most of these people, some of them are very old, as you
Yeah.
know, some are not as old anymore, and you got in between. It's still pretty high up on age, but notwithstanding that, it's still the same. It's still the same way it's been. It's every time it's been exactly that, going back to so many years, even when we go back to Abraham Lincoln, we had all those fights that went on during that period as well between each party stuff, just like this. So as we look and reflect upon anything in our lives, anything, we will find something that we forgot about.
Yeah.
And that's when just like when you open the book, you didn't remember that it was in one spot in there till today, when you open the book.
Yes.
And so that gives you so much more thing. And then all of a sudden, you reflect on what you saw. And you saw the person that you know that was so much helpful to you growing up.
Yes.
And I know that's true with you all too, that you have that opportunity to reflect on anything you want to do because you'll find out that you may have missed something along the way. And I know that that happens with me, and I know it happens with most of you. Some of you can do it without it. I'm grateful if you can because it's not easy for me. And so I'm here to just tell you that today is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And that's how we get to these places. So I was thinking maybe this is a place for this poem. I was thinking about it, and it kind of falls into that same thing. And I'll pull that out, and then we'll go to another part of this. But we'll see how this plays out. And I want to see if it works for you all, and if it doesn't, it's all you have to do is tell me that, and I won't do it again. I promise. So this one is called something that is there, and it's called Nothing More, Nothing Less.
Mm.
Been there once, don't know if I'm going back. Some say go, and others say no, no, no. Maybe you went somewhere when you wanted to see the rushing waters splashing rocks faster than ever, or where you were to see and hear a baby born that's so beautiful. Saw the baby through a hospital glass window where families watched and cried with tears of joy. You could have climbed on a snowflake mountain on a spring-like winter day, still but waiting now for seeing the birds and bees flower bound. But just like when the weather changes and the spring rain begins again, it makes me remember that there is nothing more, nothing less. Somewhere I cannot see a place for eternity. How you get there is God's way. But you have God who loves you and will show you when and where. This is the day the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad. God's love brings us hope and gives us joy and happiness. As I end these special words, I can only think there is God's will, who gives us a path to follow and lead us towards every tomorrow's. So that was the way that that one ended as well.
That's knowing, I think God is leading you into what that looks like, whether it's service, whether it's public service, whether it's the private sector. When we're talking about work right now, if I can reflect back on one other thing kind of related to that, I mentioned to you earlier, my son is going into the Army.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I think
Yeah.
that's real important.
Yeah, my son, Brett, we had a great opportunity this past weekend. We went to Washington to do some tours. Just wanted to take him on a White House tour. We had a friend of mine who works at the Pentagon, and so we had a Pentagon tour, and then we just did some other sightseeing things around the city. I'm real proud. I'm proud of both of my kids. I really am. They have. I'm just really excited for him in this chapter of his life. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard for him, just because the sheer nature of the work that he wants to do. He wants to be in special forces in the United States Army, and he wants to serve, and he feels like he's being called to do that. Hasn't he's been a power. He worked for a power company. He's been a lineman, and then all of a sudden decided that that's what he wants to do. He said, I'm being called. He said, I don't want to have any regrets of not being where I feel like I'm being called to be. So anyways, this past week, as we were in the Pentagon, I mean, once in a lifetime opportunity from the people that we were around for this particular scenario to happen is, so we're walking down the hallway of the Pentagon, and we get to have a conversation with the highest ranking military non-commissioned officer in the United States military. And as we're sitting there having this conversation with him, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff walks by, General Kane. And I said, when does this happen, when you got the two highest ranking people in the military in your presence right now? And he hasn't even, he goes off September the 9th into the Army. But to have that opportunity where he could get some words of wisdom, which he did receive from those two gentlemen about his next chapter in his life, was invaluable. Yeah. And to have that picture that we were able to take, and they were so gracious to spend some time with him, to talk with him. They're busy men.
Oh, yeah.
But they took a few minutes, and it was more than a few minutes, matter of fact. They took a few minutes to spend some time with him. Yeah. And that was a great experience to be able to have with him. And I will, later on, I'll reflect back of how important that is.
That's going in your book.
Absolutely. And then my daughter, Bentley, God, she is just a blessing. And I just am so proud of her, that she has such a heart of serving. She teaches dance up on 210 at the Art of Dance is where she works. But what I feel like that she gives back to the younger kids and kids who may have special needs, it's just such a blessing to be able to watch. And I'm so proud of her. And she and I have had trips together, just one-on-one, like I had trips with him one-on-one, to be able to have that time. And I hope that they will reflect back at some point and say, man, I really enjoy that time with my dad, as I've had time with my dad and my mother and my grandmother over the years.
Yeah.
It's just, and the other people in your lives. I look back and think, man, I've been so blessed, and I don't want to ever not be thankful for that. And I want to be able to share that with people of how blessed I am and how thankful I am for the opportunities that have been given to me in the past and what's coming in the future.
And we don't have a clue
Mm-mm.
where that's leading us at all. And that's true even as you get there. You have no way to understand where you're going after this. And we all know that, but we don't seem to accept it.
Yeah.
And that's the other problem, is that when we think that God is doing something for us, we forget to thank him.
Yeah.
It's just real easy. Thank him every day. Don't even wait for another day. Do it right now. Do it as we're talking.
That's right.
Just give God all the thanks, because he is the one that carries us through. If we've been ill, if we've been doing things and we're looking for so many other things, but he gives us this. And so, I can't even imagine how he could even listen to us, knowing that we're not really focusing on just the things that he's asked, which is just to give him thanks.
Well, we talked about earlier too. I think that's a good point to go into this piece. It says that God says, I have been taking up residence within you. He didn't say that, but that's the truth. He's taking up. And so when we start going away, or things start going bad, if you will, or things are disruptive in our lives, and it talks about just simply say my name.
Yeah.
I am Jesus. I am.
Just there.
Coming back to that and getting back into focus whenever we have all these cloudy things that are around us and all the noise. If I sat here and said that I do that all the time, I would not be telling the truth.
Right.
But I think that's what we need to be doing, and we need to make that a practice of our daily lives.
Well, I know that from our standpoints that we're sitting here today,
Yes,
that we realize that every moment is him listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And all we have to do is to give him thanks and to give him the way to do these things together and to guide us on our path, and not let us be away, not let us be saying, look, God, we'll come to see you tomorrow, because he's already there and he knows where we're going. So that's kind of the way we're going today, and the reflections are very important for us to remember. That's why it's called Sunday Reflections, because we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday that I want to reflect upon, and that includes all three religions. Yeah.
And it was such a great reflection for me, as I mentioned, to be able to spend time with family.
Oh, yeah.
And then being able to spend time, moving forward and seeing the great things that I know that are going to occur. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have rocky roads, but I think we put our faith and we put our focus back to where we just mentioned, where it needs to be, and then be able to see the good things that will happen.
Yeah. And it's important to know this. And, again, you're about to see where it goes with you, and into another city, to a place that is much different than Madison.
And St. John's and Flagler. That's right. It's
right.
going to be different than any of those. But
That's right.
But as I said, we never forget where we come from.
That's right. And don't ever do that. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for the time.
It's been great to have you doing it. And I hope that you all enjoy this time. And because I know that for me, I always enjoy this opportunity, because I don't get to see them like this all the time. Yeah. And when we do have this opportunity, it seems it works all together.
It's like a glove.
All right. Well, have a blessed day, and to you all too. And remember, don't forget the Clam Shack DJs and Chris Shee and the Shee family. All right. Have a good one.